Hello, welcome to another episode of the Good Human podcast. Today I'm going to talk about a subject that a lot of people really struggle to get their heads around, but that can be absolutely life-changing. And that is taking responsibility for yourself. Now, this is not extreme ownership. This isn't at all costs, I am going to be accountable for every incident and everything that happens within my life, although there is wisdom in that. This is going to be more about how changes in how you view things can be absolutely mind-bendingly life-changing. This has evolved in my brain over a good number of years after repeatedly seeing different clients who have gone on, say, a weight loss journey and then regained weight. And these are not silly people, like these are smart people. And yet they've gone to the trouble of understanding what to do for a good diet, implementing it into their lives, changing their habits. And yet a year or so later, I get them back again and they've regained their weight. And the more this has happened over the years, the more I'm going, the problem isn't being solved. So when people say to me, I know what to do, I'm just not doing it, it's that swirled around in my head so much over the years, because it strikes me that people know what to do on a very surface level. So they've got the very practical, pragmatic element of what to do, as in maybe they've learned how much protein to eat, they've learned to eat more fruits and vegetables, they've learned to try and eliminate processed food from their diet, and they've implemented those things. And maybe they've even kept those things as they've evolved past their diet, but other things have started to creep back in. And it seems to me that something is missing. And the deeper I've dug over the years, the more I've came to understand fully that the vast majority of people need to dig much deeper than that surface level of how much of each macronutrient to consume. And if they're not addressing the fundamental thing that first caused them to gain weight, then they're more likely to remain on this roller coaster of weight loss and weight gain. Now, this doesn't just apply to body weight and weight loss and weight gain, but I think it's something that people can identify with and resonate with quite easily. So this, I watch what I say here, because I don't think this applies to, no, I know this does not apply to absolutely everybody. I've had a number of clients over the years who literally gained weight out of a comfortable marriage and producing children, and just they neglected to take care of themselves. And sometimes that's just what happens. So it's not always a big, in-depth, like childhood trauma that you have to investigate, but sometimes it is. Sometimes a traumatic event from your past, and it might not be a major one, it might not be like abuse or serious bullying or a manipulative relationship. It could be something much, much simpler, like something one person said to you one time that really triggered you and really like buried deep into your soul, and you started to build part of your identity on top of that. And it's amazing how as humans we can do this, and our insecurities create this base for beliefs that we're not worthy and we're not enough, and here's where we're getting to the good stuff. Okay, so if you have a very entrenched belief that you are not worthy, that your self-worth is really low, and that you're carrying with yourself a lot of insecurities, then your weight gain is very likely to be a symptom of that. The self-worth is not a symptom of the weight gain. The weight gain is a symptom of the self-worth. I'm going to let that sink in for a little moment. So I use a phrase, you eat what you are, not you are what you eat, which I think is getting it backwards. You eat what you are. And very often, not always, but very often, your consumption of certain foods has a very strong reflection of how you feel about yourself and therefore how you treat yourself. So if you wonder why you keep reaching for lots of caffeine, lots of alcohol, lots of processed foods, there is something behind that. Again, I will repeat it, it doesn't have to be something deeply traumatic, although it very well might be. It could be something much more simple. And only each individual will be able to investigate themselves and lean into what that might be. I certainly cannot do any sweeping generalizations for this. I think it takes a deal of bravery to lean into this as a subject for yourself. I think that if you've buried something very deep, so deep that you literally are eating that emotion, then you probably want to go into this with a good bit of recognition that you are digging up something. There's a reason you buried it, right? There's a reason you've tried to move on with your life and ignore it. Now, each individual, and I am not counselling people here, each individual will have to look at how they want to move forward with that. Personally, I'm not a big, I don't really trawl through my past. I've done it once or twice, and there is some serious things that have happened in my past. I've done it once or twice, but it never really felt like it was moving me forward to go back there. I'm more somebody who leaves the past in the past. And as I've came to be able to do that more, and I've recognized that living now, this is the mindfulness thing, right? That living now is where you find happiness. And the better you live now, the better your future will become. And that the past, you have to say goodbye to it and let it go. And sometimes that requires a little bit of empathy for yourself, where you can forgive yourself for things that have happened in your past, even if the thing you're forgiving yourself for is holding on to that past. Now, for some people that will work. For some people, you may have to work through whatever has happened to you before in order to be able to grow your self-worth in the present day. You might have things that you have built into your identity that you believe are very firm and true and irrevocable truths about yourself that cannot be changed or moved. Very common ones that I hear from people are, I'm just lazy. Now, nobody is lazy. There are things, there are habits that you have formed and beliefs that you have grown about yourself that have produced a level of inactivity, but I don't believe that people are lazy. Now, that's a truth behind all behaviours. There is something behind all of them that has created either a present day habit or belief about yourself that then creates how you live your life and how you speak and what you expect from yourself and what you do on a daily basis. So there's a reason that this subject is hard to clarify for people, and why there's not a beautifully succinct way of saying to somebody, it's not you, it's me. And it being inherently clear what that means. And it's because each one of us has our own unique identity. And that will make it easier or more difficult for you to hear this, lean into it, and work through it. So, it's not you, it's me, and self-worth and confidence. So, the reason that I'm calling the book It's Not You, It's Me is because your happiness will always depend on what's going on in here. It depends barely a jot on what is going on out there. Now, things can still happen to you. I was in an incredibly serious road traffic accident when I was 21. I had no control over that. I was a passenger in the vehicle. That certainly happened to me. The consequent years of pain and depression and antisocial behaviour and borderline alcoholism, maybe alcoholism, the years that followed that accident, that was me. I was very young at the time. I was only in my early 20s, and I didn't have the tools available to me then that I do now in order to be able to take responsibility for my life and what had happened to me in order to move forward. And if I had had those tools, I would have paid attention to my emotional responses to the pain, to the immediate change in my life and what I was capable of and not capable of anymore, who was available to me for support and why I would have, or in the case of myself, I didn't allow them to help me. And I would have leaned into those emotions and I would have investigated them, and I would have looked at, like, what was I trying to achieve from those emotions, because obviously I was very scared. Now, my fear in my case meant that I pushed away help and I believed that everything was just going to be okay. So I became blind to the seriousness of the situation. And by being blind to the seriousness of the situation, it roller coasted, and I didn't recognise the onset of depression. Now, knowing what I know now and understanding what I understand now, I would have been able to identify those early warning signs. I would have leaned in to help. I would have allowed people to assist me mentally and physically in my recovery from the accident. And I wouldn't have been angry. I wouldn't have allowed the frustration to overwhelm me. So what I'm trying to explain is that once you become much more self-aware, much more emotionally intelligent, as in you can pay attention to your emotions and read them and learn what they're trying to tell you about how you feel and where you are at, then you will stop looking externally for things to blame. So if I have an argument with somebody, if I don't really argue with people, because arguments don't get anywhere. They're not achieving anything. If you disagree with somebody, you have to listen to what they're saying, and in turn they're more likely to listen to what you're saying. The moment you start just going yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, black, white, then you're no longer getting anywhere, and you might as well just walk away from each other, because neither one of you are going to change the other person's mind. All you're both doing is venting. When you become more emotionally intelligent, you are more willing to listen to what the other person says. And you're more willing to listen to what you're saying and accept that maybe not everything that you are saying is inherently correct. An awful lot of us have opinions based on our emotional context rather than listening to the reasoning of other people and accepting that we may not be perfect and we may not be right. So learning to listen to your emotions helps you to be more humble and more accepting that in any given scenario where something occurs between two people, you may be partly responsible. Depends what the situation is. So the more you can assess who you are, the language that you use to speak about people and about yourself, the more that you pay attention to your emotions and how you feel about things and what that tells you, the more your self-worth will rise up, because you start to recognize the why behind what you do and what you think. So let's go for something really simple. Like you want to start a new fitness class. but you're too scared to. You need to lean into that and ask yourself what is going on. And you're going to learn a lot if you do this. Lean into that and ask yourself what is going on. Okay, so I am worried that people will think that I am the least fit in the class. Well, you probably are going to be the least fit in the class, but you also might not be. And here's the thing. People are not thinking anything about you. They might be like, oh, new person in class. Cool. Doesn't matter. You, by thinking that people will think that you are the least fit in class, are projecting your own fear about being the least fit in class. Almost everything that starts with people will think should be changed to I think. People will think should be changed to I think. Because you cannot deposit thoughts into other people's heads. You have no idea what they're thinking. It is all just about you and your own insecurities. So once you recognise that, that can really help, because you know it's actually got nothing to do with other people and it's all to do with yourself, and you can work on yourself. You cannot change other people, but you can most certainly change yourself. So you're wanting to go to this class and you've recognised that it's got nothing to do with other people, how you get on there. It's all about yourself. Why are you worried about being the least fit in class? Why does that even concern you? Why are you looking to stop yourself from progressing? Why are you looking to prevent yourself from moving forward? Because that's really what's going on. You're afraid of learning something new. Maybe you're afraid of how unfit you've allowed yourself to become. But I can tell you right now, those things are not going to change unless you start to do something about it. There's many scenarios that I could talk about that addresses a similar thing. So one of them is that people will say, oh, you know, I used to go to this art class, but everybody was looking at my work saying that it was like, you know, I could do this and do that to make it better. And I just felt like people were being really overcritical all the time. Now, hear me out here. I'm 45 and not a single person has ever asked me if I'm married or have children. Never. They've never ever asked me. And yet other women will have you believe that everybody asks them those things all the time and it's none of their business. Now, why has nobody ever asked me, and yet other women would have you believe that they're plagued by those questions? Maybe it's because I'm perfectly happy with my situation. I don't project any insecurities about my situation in regarding being married or having children. I don't have any anxieties or hang-ups about that, and therefore I don't put it out there, and I don't bring the subject up. Now, you might find that these people who are saying that, people are always saying to me, they probably have anxieties about it. They probably feel themselves that their situation should be different. Maybe they're even bringing the subject up themselves. So be careful of what you think is other people's fault. It nearly always is about how you view yourself and your situation in the world. And so I'll talk about this a lot more in other podcast episodes, because this is something that can be absolutely pivotal in your life. If you have struggled to lose weight and keep it off, and there is something that triggered your weight gain in the past, then I suggest you start there. I suggest you lean into that triggering moment and look at how you allowed that to build on you over the years. And now look at how you can change that. And there's not simple, easy answers for this. That doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue it. This is one of the most rewarding things that you can ever pursue in your life. It will change everything. And you will be incredibly rewarded for it. So much happier. And the likelihood is that moving forward, you will be able to lose weight and keep it off if that is what you're after achieving. It's absolutely essential that people learn to understand this. Okay, thank you for listening. I will leave today's podcast at that. If you've got any questions regarding understanding your inner self and your self-worth, please fire them in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.